Henry Kissinger is dead. Anyway, let's have a look at his war crimes. From Cambodia to Bangladesh, a brief history of Henry Kissinger's alleged war crimes. Henry Kissinger sided with military dictators and genocidal regimes in his pursuit of projecting US power during the Cold War, resulting in the deaths of millions of innocents, Bevan Hurley reports. Now, one thing that I definitely do not like libertarians, those lawberts, we do not like war, we do not like imperialism, we do not like swinging our big dicks all over the fucking world and pissing everybody off to the point where we get terrorist attacks committed against us and we're like, oh, why did that happen? Right? Oh no, what happened? Right? That's why we don't do that. We have our own bit, we have our own land, we have our own country. We'll trade with everybody, no problem, but we're not going to, start sending the paratroopers overseas for some bullshit that we're not involved in. Dank it, Israel, right? But Henry Kissinger was not like that. He was basically like the Warhawk, right? Like Conan Powell. Conan Powell worshipped this man, right? Tony Blair loved this man, right? He was like the absolute neolib slash neocon warhawk, right? That is what he was. In his 8 years at the helm of US foreign policy, and during that time US foreign policy was drop bombs first, ask questions later, Henry Kissinger's unique brand of realpolitik diplomacy was blamed for genocides, massacres, rape, and torture on an industrial scale as well. That's what happens when you prop up the MIC. The architect of US efforts to contain the Soviet Union during the Cold War, prioritised ideology over morality and was responsible for the deaths of 3 to 4 million people between the years of 1969 and 1976, according to experts including Yale University historian Greg Grandin, the author of Kissinger's Shadow. As Secretary of State under the Nixon and Ford administrations, he pursued an interventionist approach to world affairs, which is literally the worst possible fucking approach that shaped the thinking of a generation of neocons who would come after him. In his 2001 book, The Trial of Henry Kissinger, legendary British author Christopher Hitchens methodically laid out the case for the grand old US statesman to be prosecuted for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnap, and torture. Which, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Have you seen some of the shit our governments do overseas? It's fucking diabolical. I know. That's why, like, it's just, no, you know what? I'm not going to make that comment on that. That's far too spicy for this time of night. But anyway, Hitchens wrote that the US could either persist in averting their gaze from the egregious impunity enjoyed by a notorious war criminal and lawbreaker, or they can become seized by the exalted standards to which they continually hold everybody else. Kissinger, who died age 100 at his home in Connecticut on Wednesday, 29th November, leaves behind a tainted legacy as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State that would only emerge years after the fact, as US records were declassified, dictatorial regimes removed, and reckonings established. His worldview was shaped by his experiences growing up as a Jew under the Nazis of Germany. That prioritised his name. That explains. That's why we're in the Middle East. Jokes, bros, jokes. That prioritised his need to project American strength towards its communist adversaries and led to disastrous consequences for countries caught in the crossfire of his Machiavellian strategies. Remember when they were against the communists? Remember? Pepperidge Farm remembers. In his latter years, Kissinger reportedly had to avoid travelling to countries where he may be summoned to account for his record. Despite his blood-soaked record, he remained a revered figure within US foreign policy circles until his death. Cambodia, nowhere has the impact of Kissinger's influence been more keenly felt than Cambodia, where his role in expanding the Vietnam War through a secret bombing campaign in 1969 and ground incursion forces by US forces the following year leaves a festering wound on the Southeast Asian nation to this day. I think, right, this might have changed since then, but I think even if you include World War II and everything like that, I think Cambodia is supposed to be the most bombed country in the world. That might have changed. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. But basically, even though Cambodia wasn't involved in the war and like American troops were told they are not allowed to cross the border into Cambodia, Cambodia got the fucking shit bombed out of it during Vietnam. Like really fucking badly. And I think it's the most bombed country in the world still to this day. I might be wrong. Do not quote me on that. The United States dropped over 540,000 tons of bombs in a campaign known as Operation Menu. What's for dinner? Fucking bombs, bro. Which he and then President Nixon pursued without the backing or knowledge of Congress in an effort to destroy the Khmer Rouge. Aye, there you go. Yeah, of course. The US was not at war with Cambodia, but Kissinger felt the barbaric operation was needed to prevent the Khmer Rouge from supporting the communist North Vietnamese army. Cambodia did provide support to the North Vietnamese because, you know, communists, they help each other out with those communal efforts and the division of labour. The fissures from the disastrous military campaign led to an 8-year civil war between the Cambodian government and the genocidal Khmer Rouge regime led by Pol Pot. The war killed an estimated 275,000 to 310,000 people, displaced millions, and destroyed a fifth of the country. In classified transcripts of telephone conversations from 1970, Kissinger spoke to Nixon about the situation in Cambodia before relaying the following order to his deputy, Alexander Haig. He wants a massive bombing campaign in Cambodia. It's an order. It's to be done. Anything that flies on anything that moves, you got that. It's just such Warhawk fucking bullshit, man. I hate this stuff. I hate Warhawks. I just see anyone that's like, yeah, let's go to war. Like, I fucking hate them. I hate the little LARPers that are at the ground level, and I hate the ones that are at the top. I just fucking hate it. Right. Yeah, bro, let's drone strike children. Woo! Democracy. Woo! Like, I fucking hate it so much. At the age of 90 and in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, Kissinger maintained that the US aerial bombardment took place in parts of Cambodia that were essentially unpopulated. Then why, my brother in Christ? Well, not really. Then why were you bombing them? Why were you bombing empty areas? I mean, the point of bombs is to destroy infrastructure or to kill people. You know, oh, there's a tank factory. That's a high value target. You would want to bomb that. What were you bombing? Trees? What was that going to show? You knew, or were you just doing that thing of we think there's fighters there, so let's just nuke the entire area from orbit and hope for the best? Kissinger was later found to have sabotaged peace talks between the US and the Viet Cong. Why would he do that? Why would someone like that want the war to continue? While advising the Lyndon B. Johnson administration during the Paris peace talks of 1968 by passing confidential intelligence to the South Vietnamese government. Yeah, by the way, one thing, see the rules of engagement in the Vietnam War? They were like clearly designed to stretch the war out for as long as possible. Like, you even, like, look at interviews with old Vietnam War vets and stuff like that. They were not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do that if we knew the enemy was there, but it was like this certain type of landscape we weren't allowed to go in. Like, honestly, the rules of engagement were clearly made to stretch the Vietnam War out for as long as possible. Many thought it grotesque that Kissinger was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize. Kissinger for negotiating the end of the war. After visiting the country, the late chef, author, and TV icon Anthony Bourdain wrote in his 2011 book, A Cook's Tour, "Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. Witness what Henry did in Cambodia, the fruits of his genius for statesmanship, and you will never understand why he's not sitting in the dock at The Hague next to Milosevic." Speaking to the New Yorker in 2017, Bourdain said he was sickened by how New York society had embraced Kissinger. Senator Bernie Sanders said that Kissinger created one of the worst genocides in the history of the world, because that's what very often, see when everyone's got this big interventionist foreign policy approach, you just make the country so much fucking worse. So much fucking worse. Look at Libya. Look at the fucking state of Libya. Yeah, Mad Dog Gaddafi was a bit of a fucking arsehole, but look at the state of Libya. That place, they've got open-air slave markets now. After Gaddafi was kicked out of power, Libya's like never recovered. That was years ago. When did Gaddafi get done in? 2011? I can't remember, right? But fucking Libya's a shithole. Barely even has a government now. They've got open-air slave markets and all that. Like, honestly, is the place a shithole? And that's the result of American interventionist foreign policy. East Timor, Kissinger's bloody role in the massacre by Indonesian forces of the East Timorese people would only emerge decades after the fact. He and President Gerald Ford met with the Indonesian dictator Suharto in December 1975. Happened there. Well, they gave him the green light to invade East Timor, sparking a civil war that left as many as 200,000 people dead, according to documents that were declassified in 2001. It is important that whatever you do succeeds quickly, Kissinger told Suharto during a brief visit to Indonesia, according to telegrams obtained by the National Security Archive at George Washington University. The next day, Indonesia invaded the fledgling former Portuguese colony, resulting in a decades-long conflict that continued until 2002, when Timor finally gained independence. Asked about the tacit approval in 1995, Kissinger flat-out denied that he had discussed the invasion with Suharto, who was viewed as a bulwark against communist expansion in the region. Those who follow history, who follow international politics, they know about this past, which was tragic and ugly, East Timorese President José Ramos Horta told the Washington Post in an interview after Kissinger's death. Mr. Ramos Horta told the Post that he felt Kissinger and other US officials were embarrassed by what they did, but in numerous face-to-face meetings he had, never acknowledged his role in the massacre of the East Timorese people. Chile, Salvador Allende has been viewed as a threat to US hegemony in South America long before he was elected as Chilean president in 1970, at a time when much of the continent was ruled by military dictatorships propped up by American support. The socialist leader implemented wide-ranging reforms to nationalize the country's copper mining industry, provide free healthcare and education to help lift the poorest out of poverty. He also re-established diplomatic ties with the Soviet Union and Fidel Castro's Cuba. So the guy was, communist socialist. You know, the standard stuff that you saw happening throughout South America during the 60s, 70s and 80s, where some men from a certain three-letter agency would come down and go, "Hey, bro, that's not cool, bro. You can't do that, bro. It'd be a real shame if suddenly this guy that doesn't like all that stuff got a lot of money and weapons out of nowhere. You know, that'd be crazy, wouldn't it?" Remember when the CIA was against communism? Do you remember? Declassified reports would later show that Kissinger led the Nixon administration's efforts to destabilize the country and spent millions in covert activities to undermine his government and protect US business interests. 3 years into Allende's rule, with the country facing record inflation and widespread strikes, socialism at work, which were in part funded by the CIA. I told you. A coup led by General Augusto Pinochet, wow, I wonder where he got the guns from, saw the overthrow of the democratically elected government. Where did Pinochet get the funds and the guns? Where did they come from? Kissinger denied any involvement or knowledge of the coup. Shut up. Although declassified documents later showed that he and Nixon had branded Allende as a dangerous communist and laid the seeds for his overthrow. Allende was killed in the presidential palace on 11 September 1973 in what came to be known as the other 9/11. And what? Why am I laughing? Like, a report by the Chilean government later found that 40,018 people were killed, tortured, or imprisoned on political charges during Pinochet's regime. Now, a few things that you should know about Augusto Pinochet is the reason that the cocaine trade absolutely exploded was because Pinochet, lots of places have due process. You can bribe guards, you can bribe government officials, you can do all that stuff. Not under Pinochet, right? Basically, if you did anything wrong, firing squad. Did anything bad, firing squad. Said the wrong thing, firing squad. Were you caught with anything to do with the cocaine trade? Holy shit, firing squad, right? That's just what happened to you. So what happened was they decided, fuck this, we can't produce it here. Let's move it north. And they moved it north, and that's where they took it into Colombia and places like that. And that's where they met a man by the name of Pablo Escobar. We all know what happened after that. So Pinochet kind of inadvertently caused the explosion of the cocaine trade into the United States. And funnily enough, the CIA also had a hand in that as well. Where do you think crack came from? But another thing now, I hate to rain on everyone's parade, right? Now, I know we all love our Pinochet helicopter memes. Right? He used to take communists up in the helicopter and he used to throw them out. Sometimes he would do it over the city to show everyone this is what's going to happen to communists in this country. Right? Now, I hate to be that guy, but it is extremely likely that never happened. That never happened. The whole helicopter thing was made up. That's what it seems now. Don't get me wrong, Pinochet killed a lot of people. Man loved the firing squad. Fucking loved the firing squad, right? But the helicopter thing, the only source for any of that is his personal helicopter pilot. And he only came out and said it after the regime fell. That was what he came out and was like, and it kind of felt like he was doing I never really liked the guy, and that's what it kind of seemed like. So that's the source of that. So there's basically, I'm not saying it didn't happen, right? Maybe it did, like, maybe it's something he did once or twice, but it's extremely likely that it actually didn't happen at all. So, man still killed a lot of people, but the helicopter thing could actually be a lot of shit. Which is disappointing because there's so many brilliant memes around it. But anyway, historian Peter Kornblatt, author of the Pinochet File, wrote that under the narrow definition of direct role, the CIA does not appear to have been involved in the violent actions of the Chilean military on September 11th, 1973. And if you believe that, I've got a fucking bridge to sell you. But he continued that the Nixon White House had undoubtedly embraced the coup. In a record conversation with Nixon 5 days after it, Kissinger confessed, "We didn't do it. I mean, we helped them." Helped them, created the conditions as great as possible. By the way, the CIA has like an entire fucking, it's like a whole rule book for how to destabilize a country, basically find their opponent, fund the opponent, and instigate a violent coup. Like, they learned all that shit in South America because they did it that many times. Pinochet's military junta was immediately recognized by the United States, and the dictator ruled the country with an iron fist until 1990. Argentina. Kissinger provided US support to the military junta of General Jorge Rafael Videla after he overthrew President Isabel Perón in March 1976, according to State Department cables. This led to the infamous Dirty War between 1976 to 1983. Why does that keep doing that? 1976 to 1983, where Argentina's military rulers killed or disappeared 10,000 and 30,000 citizens, many of whom were never heard from again. Secretary Kissinger secured $50 million in funding for the Argentine dictatorship from Congress after leaving the White House. He attended the 1978 Football World Cup as a personal guest of Videla. The horrors of the military rule were exposed after Argentina elected democratic leaders again in 1983. Many political prisoners were dropped from helicopters into the ocean. So he did that. So it's saying that Videla did it and not Pinochet. I don't know what's happened with the wires getting crossed. I have looked into the Pinochet thing and it turned out that it most likely is not true. But it seems that this guy may have done it, or is this another exaggerated thing that we're hearing about? Videla was later convicted of torture, kidnapping and murder and died in prison in 2013. Bangladesh, when war... Jesus Christ, this man's been around, hasn't he? When war broke out in what was then known as East Pakistan in 1970, Kissinger and Nixon backed the military government of West Pakistan in its genocide in what would become Bangladesh. At the time, East Pakistan was a key US ally in its geopolitical struggle against the Soviet Union and communist-leaning India. As the war spread and India became involved, the White House opted to back the slaughter by illegally transferring military hardware to the East Pakistan government. Independent researchers put the death toll at between 300,000 to 500,000 people, while Bangladeshi officials place it as high as 5 million. I'm not... You know what? No, it's too easy. In the 2013 book, The Blood Telegram, Gary J. Bass wrote that Kissinger had called Indians bastards, and Nixon said they needed a mass famine. Jesus Christ. Now, Mr. Bass recounted a conversation between the pair where they compared Pakistan's genocide to the Holocaust, and yet still decided that any US intervention would be unwise. Kissinger reportedly felt that it was more important to secure Pakistan's help in diplomatic efforts to woo China. After Kissinger's death, Bangladesh's Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen condemned his role in violating all American laws, international laws to support Pakistani military junta, and also supplied weapons to illegally occupying forces of Pakistan. So basically, Henry Kissinger was the ultimate Warhawk. See all the fuckery that you've heard about the CIA getting up to between like 1940 to like 1980? Right, that was all him. He all had a hand in all of it. Right, ultimate warhawk, neocon arsehole. Right, man has so much blood on his hands. Basically, US foreign policy is to basically interfere with everybody else in the entire fucking world all the time. And what did that get America? Completely subverted by communists. So you're getting to the point where the CIA's own Twitter account is tweeting out about pronouns, and you've got the FBI investigating regular Christian family men living in the countryside because they want to be left alone, right? And that's what makes it so funny. Despite all of their best efforts, America still fell to the communists. That's what makes this so funny. But essentially, not a fan of Henry Kissinger. Not a fan. I am do not like war, don't like fucking war, don't like interventionism. I don't like having a foreign policy of swinging your fucking massive cock all over everybody's fucking countries and then going, why do they hate us so much, right? It's just stupid, it's infantile, it's daft, right? And this guy was one of the worst offenders out of all of them, right? So Is that what was I going to say again? Oh yeah, hell has another demon. Right, that's great. You know, he can sit down there and burn for all eternity for all I care.